throb never. Hard throb forever.
All right, first off, I want to start this post by stating, for those of y'all that listen, if y'all want real content, where ain't a whole bunch of fluff in between, it's getting directly to the point with these advanced concepts that we talk about, y'all got to support the videos by becoming, by subscribing, by hitting the like button so that it can get activated in the algorithms. You know what I'm saying? That's for those of y'all that like the content. Like we can't push our narrative without the actual support of the listener. So, but this one's going to be a little deep, and it's something I've been thinking about and actually thinking if I wanted to do a post on it, but we'll just go ahead and tap on it for a minute. So the issue is the fact that American blacks have been systematically for centuries oppressed, violated, denied rights, genocided, and as a result of these things, their population demographic within their ethnic group had become decimated, so much to the point where it created an imbalance for the males and the females. The male to female ratio was adversely affected, meaning that upon American blacks coming out of slavery, we had a gross imbalance of the male to female ratio, with the males being largely in less number than the females, coming, into around the early 1900s and, pretty much up till 1965. And the government has known this, when it was going down, because of the censuses they took and everything that they had, that there was an imbalance of American black males to females. There were more American black females than males due to American black males being murdered off, point blank, no other way around it, being murdered off. So it created an imbalance. Now, what's funny about this is that at this time, and this is me upon my research, they figured they had to do something about it. And this is why I believe that the whole civil rights thing, the way that it went down and the way that it played out, this is why they allowed all of these immigrants, particularly phenotypically black immigrants, to come into the United States as potential mates for the American black females who didn't have enough of their own ethnic group of men. I want y'all to think about that for a second. You see? Because around that time, we had a lot of men from the Caribbean and from Africa and from other places that were phenotypically black come to America and engage in mating and the act of reproducing with these American black females because there weren't enough of their own men. And being in slavery, you thinking that the person is just from another country. You're not thinking that this is a whole, that, we were in a whole ethnogenesis state, from being in slavery, separated from the rest of the world. Okay? And so we look at the situation, particularly with Gen Xers. After that 1965 deal, our families, began to be split. The fathers weren't in the home. Now, y'all got to think about this. Now, before then, we didn't have that much of a problem with that. But after 1965, all of a sudden, we got a problem with that. And that's because of these immigrants that had come here and dealt with on a reproductive level with the American black females, where we had the situation of a lot of children that were created during Gen X didn't know who their fathers were. And so for the longest time, a lot of that had been blamed on the black female solely for her, choosing the wrong man, or, being promiscuous or whatever and all this and that. And then some of it was put, on the black males for just leaving their children and so on and so forth. When historically, that wasn't really so much the case with American black males and females. But see, nobody wants to address the topic of what was really going on. Well, the reason that those males weren't in the family was because they were black immigrants that came into America and made it with American black women. The women just thinking, okay, this is a black man. He's here. I finally get to have a man, and be a wife or be a mother and this and that. Like, they not knowing that these are foreigners, immigrants. And so my question is, upon being in slavery, upon being destroyed through systematic policies of the government that prevented black people from upward mobility and safety and comfort in this country, to have an onslaught of immigrant men mating with American black women, as well as the forced onslaught of sexual reproduction with, their oppressor for hundreds of years prior to immigration, has not American black people been placed in a situation of being completely molested and genocided through forced sexual assimilation with people that are not of their ethnic group? You see? I want y'all to really think about this, because that's what it would be. There's no other way around it. It was a cultural erasure, a cultural genocide, an ethnogenocide, an ethnocide, because the numbers of the men in that demographic were decimated due to slavery, Jim Crow segregation. The numbers were decimated that the surplus of American black women that didn't have their own natural biological ethnic counterpart for mating and reproduction. So when you look at this situation, you have to clearly see that this was a molestation of a people who couldn't help themselves. You have forced them into mating with people that are not of their culture, are not of their ethnogenesis. And I'm saying that that's something that really needs to be thought about. Me personally, I'm calling it a molestation and a reproductive genocide. That's what I'm calling it. On an anthropological level. Anthropologically, sociologically, you have to look at this as a case of demographic engineering. You have to look at this as a case of gender disparity. You have to look at this as a case of assimilation versus survival. You have to be aware and cognizant that those terrible things that happened to this American black demographic, it caused the loss of cultural identity. It caused a disruption in their ethnogenesis. And it prevented their universal God-given right to reproductive freedom, to reproduce freely amongst their own ethnic group without any mongrelization or corruption due to social engineering. You see, if any of the things that happened to American blacks were put on any other ethnic group, all of the international communities and governments would be in an uproar about it. All of the governments and people that have their own countries would be in an uproar about, well, no, that's not fair. They're causing the genocide and this. Like, it would never be allowed to happen. And so, no, it shouldn't have been allowed to happen, and it's grossly unfair. Like in the grounds of, if this demographic of male to female ratio of American blacks was decimated due to years of systematic oppression and even government legislation forcing American blacks to seek mates outside of their ethnic group, being a result of systematic oppression and historical violence. This is inherently unfair. This is a consequence of structural injustice. And these unfairnesses, involve, these unfairnesses involved taking away the ability of American blacks to form family structures, without external pressure or the distortion of them making their own autonomous choice. This is criminal. This has to be viewed as a genocide against American blacks under international law. The 1948 United Nations Genocide Convention defines genocide as acts committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. And this includes imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group, and thus being, if a population is prevented from mating within itself due to state-imposed violence and sanctions, it could be considered a form of genocide under international law. And you can look this up on the United Nations 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crimes of Genocide. UN.org. And so to continue this, this is also a forced assimilation and cultural genocide. Like, the thing that I'm bringing up in this post today clearly indicates and is historically documented as causing a forced assimilation. We have the further point of what happened to American blacks here being a reproductive violence against their natural human rights. That's a human rights violation. You see, everybody sits around and talks about what happened to American blacks with the lynchings and the slavery and all that type of stuff, but no one's mentioning what happened to their numbers and the types of effects that were caused due to this disruption of their natural human rights and their rights to exist. There's no way around it. No way around it at all. And like I said, this one was going to be a little bit deep. I don't have the numbers yet to get into these panels. Like I said, I'm not going to be doing panels and lives for just a few people. I want to add into this, and I'll probably do a post on it as well. Now that we know what's going on, when y'all get out there to vote, if y'all looking at these people and you don't know their ethnic background, whether they're American black, you better not be voting for them. Because what you'll be doing is having a situation of a taxation without representation, where you have these political figures being your representatives politically and for legislation, but they don't have your community interests involved. You don't have someone in the governmental system that is actually your representation for your need and for your ethnic group. So there's no more getting out there to vote just based off of somebody being phenotypically black. This has proven destructive and has caused us a lack of upward mobility in our communities since 1965. But back to the thing at hand. with everything that's happened to American blacks in regards to the genocide that was imposed on them, was it fair to have them mate with a population that was, their oppressor due to them outnumbering them? Was it fair to American blacks to have them mate with people who were being brought in from other countries, as well as the people who were already here as their dominant class over them? Was that forced assimilation all the way around? I know what I say it is. I say yeah. But I'm challenging you all to look into these concepts, and then you ask yourself if it was a forced molestation and a genocide on an ethnic group of people who have been marginalized and decimated through murder. And then you look at the situation of all of these American black households started experiencing no fathers in the home after 1960, after the Civil Rights Movement, when they allowed all of these immigrants to come here, forcing their genetic material on the female population of the American black ethnic group. It should have been, unfortunately, we were educated, but, we didn't know that there was a difference between a Caribbean black and an American black. You see what I'm saying? We didn't make that delineation. We didn't know that Africans or blacks from Africa viewed us in a strongly different capacity than we viewed them. So, but here's the deal. Now that we do know, how y'all gonna respond to it, and how you gonna clean up the things in your community and in your household for catapulting upward mobility? It can't just be surface level conversations anymore. Like, y'all gotta really, and not y'all, sound like I'm talking down, but we have to start having conversations and strategies to offset and ultimately destroy these things that have been put in place to keep us down as a people, keep us from advancing, and keeping us from being a healed ethnic group of people and a more respected ethnic group of people in the global view. So I'll leave it at that. Was the force and is the forced mate reproduction of an ethnic group who had their male to female ratio adversely affected with less men for the women of the ethnic group, was that a genocide and an cultural erasure and a molestation through forced sexual assimilation? I'm out.
Heart throb never. Heart throb forever.